Jay Fazette here, and it's another Mastermind to Millions Monday. And today I want to talk with you a little bit about, when things seem to happen in threes or there's synchronicity around topics or ideas or conversations. Well, what's fascinating is this, is last week I was coaching a dear friend and a brilliant client of mine, Saul, and we were working on the titles for his webinar and the titles for his actual online program and then his live event. And anyone here who knows me knows that titles are not my strongest suit. In fact, there's a big joke in terms of our community. It's like, geez, me and my dear wife years ago, we designed a couples weekend and we thought very long and hard about what we should call it. And we came up with the perfect name. It's called the Couples Weekend. And then, we decided we should do something on top of the couples weekend, maybe like a couples retreat. So we sat down, we worked very, very hard on what we should call that. And you'll be shocked and amazed at what we landed on. We landed on something called the couples retreat. So anyway, it's been kind of an ongoing joke. And when I started doing internet marketing and communicating about masterminds online, communicating about our personal development things online, I remember something happening, which was I was talking to a dear friend of mine, Justin Livingston, which if you watched the last episode, you saw us have a little chat. And it was funny because he said to me, the very first thing, he said, so how are you going to convert? What's the conversion mechanism? So, well, we're going to do a webinar. And he goes, fantastic. What's the name of the webinar? I said, I don't know. It's just a webinar. Come on, it's a webinar. What more do you need to know? He said, well, I need to know the name of it. And at the time, I was so new to this whole idea of online marketing and positioning, and it didn't make any sense to me. It's like, just let it go, for crying out loud. We're doing a webinar. Now, it isn't until years later that I actually discover and figure out how important that freaking name is and what it actually means. So I want to share with you a couple of key things. So number one, I was working on this with Saul. We were giggling about my naming conventions. And then I was at The Rise in San Diego with my dear friend, Kristen Thompson. Hello, you did a fabulous job. And we were doing a little, what we call wine conversations and cash afterwards. And there was a gentleman there who was really stuck on his naming conventions. So I want to just give you a couple of hints. And here is hint number one, is that the copy and the title of your webinar or conversion strategy is ideally a pain-based title, okay? Now, please understand this. My greatest resistance was I just spent, 25 years of my life, saying to people that is, let's be motivated by what we're moving towards. And I resisted using a pain-based title. So I did everything. It's like, make millions, running masterminds, serve your tribe at a higher level, like all of these webinar titles. And the registration for all of them completely and utterly sucked. Not a little bit, a lot. And it wasn't until I surrendered to what Justin had suggested to me, which is, look, the webinar has to have a pain-based title. So it's 3 massive mistakes that coaches make when launching masterminds and what you can do about it to add 6 figures to your bottom line. Now, that's a very long title, but it hits exactly on the head what the pain is, which is lots of people have tried masterminds. Lots of people have been in crappy masterminds. So the title hooks them. Now, that webinar title has been exceptionally strong for us. And so what I want you to understand is that the conversion title needs a pain-based title. You've got to poke them at the stick a little bit. But then once we get to the actual program, that's where you want a promise-based title. So we were working with a gentleman in San Diego who was working on trying to come up with his mastermind title. And when I said to him, look, the promise and the title, the more positively and closely related they are, the better. So I gave him a couple of examples. So for example, our online program, the Launch Your Mastermind 90-Day Bootcamp. Well, it implies that you're going to launch a mastermind. It implies it can be done in 90 days. And it's bootcamp. You're going to work your butt off to get that done. That actually works stunningly well. Another mastermind that I had is the Online Business Breakthrough. Now that's positioned at bricks and mortar entrepreneurs who are doing about 7 figures, who want to create that same kind of revenue stream online outside of, the cost of leases and staff and all those pieces. So here's the thing I want you to understand, is that titling is more important online than it ever is in person. And I want to be clear about this, making fun of the couples weekend. The cool part about that for us is why it worked, is that we had a line of people asking us to design and deliver one of those workshops. We had a whole bunch of people who knew us personally and said, hey, if you do this, we'll come. So it didn't, if we'd have called that thing, go to the mountains and pick your nose, for goodness sakes, people probably would have shown up. But in the online world, it is so noisy, it is so competitive, and there's so much sort of mistrust and crazy stuff. You've got to use something that's going to hook them fast. So game-based title for the conversion and a promise-based title for the program or the mastermind. Now, if you want to know more about this, there's a phenomenal template that Justin, again, the gentleman who taught me actually in person about 5.5 years ago, they have some of the best templates in the universe for titling any program or any conversion mechanism. So I would strongly suggest go get the free resource now if you haven't already. It will save you about, if you're like me, like about 3.5 years of testing other silly stuff that doesn't work. So go get the template. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.